knitters, welcome to episode 112 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I'm your host, Devin AT. You can find me on Instagram as Knitty McPurly. I am at KnittyMcPurly.com if you want to check out the stuff in my shop and my knitting patterns. And if you want to email me, I'm Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. Look what I found. He's crying coffee tears right now, I just noticed. It's hard to drink out of this mug. It's got kind of a lip on the top. And if I want to show the face, I have to drink lefty. But I think it's worth it, don't you think? It is crazy cold today. Like ridiculous. It's like 27 degrees and windy. The sun is up now, but when we went to mass this morning, it was like the heat wasn't on and everyone was like, we could see our breath and it was cold. So welcome to winter. Everyone in my house is a little grumpy today. I feel like we're in the like full-on January grumps. But January is kind of a tough month. But we're coming up on February, and February is a great month. Valentine's Day, my birthday. So anyway, oh, speaking of birthdays, happy birthday to Amy. Happy birthday, Amy, from your husband, Matt, and your 4 beautiful children. Matt sent me a message and said, Amy loves your podcast. Could you please mention her birthday and wish her happy birthday on the podcast? So happy birthday from me and all of us watching here at the Knitty McPurly podcast. Happy birthday, Amy. Hope you've had a great weekend. Hope you've gotten a lot of knitting in. I hope you've all got your knitting and you've got your coffee. Hopefully your mug is as cute as mine. And if not, that's okay too. Still, let's knit along and let's enjoy this frigid Sunday. What's the weather like where you guys are? I feel like you guys are all over, and I usually, the comments run the gamut of the weather. But anyway, the good thing about the weather is that you can wear all the knits. Today I am wearing my long sleeve Watership sweater, and it's been great. I had it under my coat at mass. It was really cold, but yeah. So anyway, it's nice to wear the knits. You can layer them up. Progress and shop news. My gilded sweater. I've had a little bit of time to work on this week. And when I wore it, I showed it to you last week on the podcast and I put it on and I noticed that the mistakes are glaring. There is a balance to be found between this mistake gives my sweater character and shows that it's handmade. There's a balance between that and, wow, that's a big mistake and everyone sees it. So I took these screenshots and I circled the 2 mistakes that are right in the front. And I thought, how can we best deal with those mistakes? Because I'm not ripping back, obviously. I don't like to rip back. I try to solve problems without ripping them back. So I thought, how can I make these things less glaringly obvious without ripping back? And so the thing that came to my mind first is duplicate stitch. If you are familiar with duplicate stitch, then you're probably thinking, gosh, that's just what I was thinking. If you're not, I'll tell you what it is. Duplicate stitch is very simple. Basically, you are placing yarn on top of the yarn you knit with so that it looked like you knit with the new yarn as opposed to the old yarn. It's a very easy to do. It's a great way to add color work to something after the fact. Like if you have a garment that you want to make look like has intarsia or color work later, you can easily do that with duplicate stitch. So I went ahead and I fixed the missing, is this the right side? Yeah, I fixed the missing leg and you can't even tell. Like you can't even tell where it was. I fixed that with duplicate stitch. But the other error was here, and I'm gonna just cut to a little video where I talk about what I did here with duplicate stitch. Okay, so this right here, I believe, is where the problem was. And you can see let's see, it should be about the same as that one. You can kind of tell if you really know it's there, but otherwise you don't really notice it. Now, what I want to fix right now, and I can't fully fix it. Here I did 2 yellows in a row. Now, I've had this happen before in a sweater, and I have just gone with it, but because this is directly in the front and because it is such a bright yellow, I feel that it is, your eye just goes to it. So now I can't create a new line of stitches in between these 2 sets of yellow stitches, but what I could do, I thought maybe, and maybe it will work, maybe it won't, we'll give it a try. I thought maybe if I worked 1 leg of each stitch and did a blue row up the middle so that there was only a yellow, a single leg of the yellow, it might just draw the eye a little bit less. So I'm gonna try doing that in duplicate stitch. Now this is a very simple process. You do need to kind of finagle it to make it look really good. Make sure you can see that. Okay, so in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in at the bottom of the V. See, what I'm going to be working are these 2 legs, which are not actually 1 stitch. They are 2 legs of 2 stitches, but I'm going to treat them like 1 just to see what will happen. So, whoops. So I'm going to take my needle with my blue yarn on it, and I'm going to go in right at the bottom of that stitch. Okay, and I'm just going to leave enough on the back so that I can weave that in later. Now, okay, now this is the stitch that I want to pretend is blue. So I'm going to take the stitch above it, and I'm going to call it a stitch, even though that's not really what it is. And I'm going to go horizontally through those 2 bars like that. And what I will get is a blue that kind of covers up that yellow. And then I go in again right at the bottom of the V, like that. And there we have it. Just gonna kind of tighten it up a little bit. I'm not gonna get perfection. All I want is for it just not to be quite so noticeable. And there we have it. All right, let's keep going. So again, I'm going to go in right at the bottom of the V, and then I don't go into the next stitch, but the one above it, go through both legs, and then in through that one again. Okay, so this is duplicate stitch, and basically what you're doing is you're just going over top of something that you already knit, and you are making it look like it is in another color. This is one way that you can work intarsia, as opposed to intarsia, where you have a picture in your knitting, but you haven't exactly worked it using intarsia. You can also do it with duplicate stitch. Bottom of the V, and then we go through the 2 legs and the stitch above. And I learned this from Very Pink Knits. Gosh, I cannot remember her name. Why can't I remember it? I keep thinking it's Andrea. It's not. I know you're yelling it at the screen right now. Everyone knows her. Very Pink Knits. She is just great at everything. But I learned this from her, and it's a great way to fix mistakes, or, you know, you could add in a picture or whatnot. I think, what happened there? I think maybe that just pulled a little bit tight. So you can kind of see the yellow still through it. But I don't really care. Like I said, all I want to do here is just kind of trick the eye into not going directly to the error. I want to put There. What do you think? I think it's a lot better. You can still see a little bit. It just is less obviously noticeable. I don't know. But if I decide that I don't like it, I can always take it out. Maybe give it a little stretch this way. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think? Leave it, take it out. I kind of think this looks a little bit better. I think it's just less noticeable. But again, it was just right in the front. So I'm not a ripper backer generally. I like to kind of go with it and just not worry about it and let it be part of the character of the garment. But sometimes things are just too glaring. So this is how I fixed it. So what do you think? Was it better before, or do you like it better worked like this? Because my whole goal, like I said, is not to make it perfect, but just to make it less glaring. So I think it's better. I mean, I think if you know it's there, you're going to see it. But I think that, you know, upon quick glimpse, woo, it just doesn't glare at you. So I think I'm going to keep it. But let me know what you think. I'd love to hear it. The other thing that I fixed, I think you don't even see it. You can't even tell which one is which. So that's nice. Now, I had originally planned to knit the sleeves with color work at the cuff, starting like mid forearm. Like that was kind of what I was thinking. But I also wanted to have a bishop sleeve, which a bishop sleeve is one that comes down and kind of blouses a little and then has the cuff. And color work and blousing don't really mix because your fabric is too thick. If you're working with two colors of yarn with floats, you're just not going to get the kind of blousing that I wanted. And so I sat there on my couch and really weighed it out. I'm like, really? Like, what do I want to do here? And I ultimately went with nixing the color work so it all kind of blends away, but I'm going to keep the bishop sleeve. So I've knitted as far as I'm going to on my larger needles, and right now I'm just trying to find my DPNs in the smaller size so that I can knit the cuff. I'm also going to decrease. So for this sleeve, I did not decrease at all. I just kept it a nice wide sleeve so that when I decrease at the cuff, I have that bishop sleeve. Oh gosh, hold on. There's something I wanted to show you. Hold on. Okay, so I was thinking about how much I love these three colors together. This is my color Trinket. The dark blue is Beryl and the light blue is Frost. This is in my Athens Alpaca Sport Weight, which is super, super soft and amazing. And I was thinking about some other colors that would be amazing for this sweater. And I thought, why don't I show you my new color? I have a new color. So I'm not going to have it for sale until the retreat so that my retreat attendees can shop first, but there will be more after that, don't worry. But the new color, gosh, which base does it look the best in? I don't know. It looks amazing in all of them. Quince & Company had a color, and they might still have it, I don't know, called Honey. And I loved that color so much. And so I sought to create something that was very similar, but still had that hand-dyed look. Because Quince & Co. is a machine-dyed yarn, and so it doesn't have any variation. It's kind of a flat dye, which is great for some applications, but that's not what I wanted. I wanted it to have the elements of that color while still looking like a hand dye, and thus was born Bosque. Isn't it great? So this is it in the Frankfurt fingering. It's green, it's yellow, it's brown. I just love it. So this is it in Frankfurt fingering. Here it is in mohair. Now you can see how it takes differently on different bases. So this is the Athens Alpaca. It's just so pretty, isn't it? And here it is in the Freetown fingering weight. And these are both non-superwash. This is it in the St. Petersburg super bulky. Isn't it great? I love it. So I was thinking of other color combinations that would look really great. Again, that color is called Bosque, and it will be available at the retreat. And if you're not coming to the retreat, it will be available after that on my website. So the way my website works is you can always go and see what I have in stock. But if I don't have the color that you want, there's an option to pre-order it. So you can always get any of my 12 colors that I have all the time. Those are on my website. You can always go get them. You can pre-order them at any time. So I was thinking about colors that go together. Here is Bosque with Black Forest Cake and Pewter, or Bougie, or Morel, or Bosque, Morel. That's a different base. I have a bunch of stuff packed up for the retreat, so I wasn't able to get to everything. That's Bougie, Morel, and Bosque. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. It's so funny. When I was reading Sherry's story last week about the green that she didn't like, I thought, that sounds like my new color. What's funny is I think it's generational, because I remember my mom talking about chartreuse, and chartreuse in my house growing up was synonymous with ugly. And I think that there was a prejudice in that generation of people who were kind of teenagers in the 60s that chartreuse is an ugly color, but we are over it. And now we think it's amazing. So, yeah, oh gosh, I just love it. I love seeing it in the camera. It's like when you get a new outfit and you keep walking past the mirror. Yeah. Okay, so I called it Bosque after the pear, because it is kind of a pear green, even though, and Bosque pears have kind of a green and a brown in them and a yellow, and they're just awesome. Okay, topic of the week. For this week, we're gonna be talking about clothes that make you feel good and how to use your wardrobe, particularly your knitted handmade wardrobe, to feel good about yourself and to feel happy in your day. Because it's easy to get bogged down for many reasons. There's a lot of things to bog us down these days. And I think wearing something that makes you happy is a good way to kind of overcome that. And the reason this thought came to my mind is because I'm teaching a class at the retreat on how to design your own sweater. And one of the recommendations for designing your own sweater is think about what you like to wear. Think about that thing in your closet that when you put it on, you feel amazing. What is it about that thing? Is it the color? Is it the shape? Is it the fabric or the texture? Is it the fit? What is it that makes you feel great? Personally, I like to look nice because I don't want to think about how I look. I think that's kind of a lot of people who don't put in any effort to their appearance might say the same thing. I don't want to think about how I look, so I'm not going to put any effort in. I'm kind of the opposite. I put in the effort so that I don't have to think about it. I'm done thinking about it. It's done. The other day, my husband and I went out just for lunch, and I really had barely pulled myself together that day because I was going to spend the day like dyeing yarn. Like I really had no anticipation of going anyplace. So I had done minimal effort. Then it was super windy. So I looked like a hot mess. And he was like, what's wrong with you? Like, what has happened here? I'm like, I don't know how this happened. But then I felt self-conscious about it. Like I was like, gosh, do I look that terrible? But that's one thing about you pull yourself together and then you just don't have to think about it all day. So I think with our knitting, we can do that. And it's easy. I think with us, you and me, we don't fall into that trap as much as maybe some other knitters do of what's the latest thing. You know, there is kind of a fan movement that follows, you know, Caitlin Hunter and Andrea Mowry and Stephen West, all amazing designers. But in order for them to pay their bills, they have to be putting out patterns often, right? That's the business. And there are people out there who follow them and, have to keep up. I remember meeting a woman at a yarn festival years ago, and she worked with a big name dyer, and I was talking to her. And I asked her what she was knitting, and she held it up, and it was the latest thing that the big designer had come out with. And she just had this look on her face of like it was a fingering weight sweater, and it had all these like things that, like color work and baubles, and I could tell it was a burden for her. Like she was going to this event and she had to get it done because it was the latest thing. And I don't know, maybe the designer was going to be there. I don't know. I don't know the details of that, but I just remember thinking, gosh, she seems so burdened by it. And it's easy to do, but we don't have to do that. We can just kind of sit back and wait till something speaks to us. And that's the benefit of the internet. I mean, gosh, the internet has everything on it. You can find absolutely everything. If you want that vintage pattern from 1938 that's so tiny that you're gonna have to do the math to make it fit a normal human being in 2023, you can do that. So I guess I want to encourage you. And this goes with our knitting as well as what we wear. And just in general, I was feeling really annoyed by my clothes lately. Like I just get annoyed every so often where I'm like, gosh, everything I own looks the same. Like, I just want to wear something different. And so I thought, you know what? I'm an artist, so I'm going to dress like one. And I'm now wearing overalls. This is what I wear now. But I'm like, I can do that. Like I can wear something that makes me happy. Even if the rest of my family says, are you in pajamas? I'm not in pajamas. This is what I like. Let me have it. So, okay, I kind of slow rolled it into this podcast, and I decided I would do more editing than prep. So let's do our comments roundup. Oh, okay, I'm still on. Okay, so I got a lot of comments last week about mulesing, and I thought about even making this podcast dedicated to mulesing, like part 2. But I thought we'll just talk about it in the comments because there were so many good comments about it. Tara says, I wonder what these alternatives are that are alternatives to mulesing that activists think exists. I do agree we should listen to farmers who actually practice animal husbandry and not industrial farmers. I do agree that maybe farmers should use some analgesics, but mulesing sounds like something that does need to happen to properly protect sheep from a terrible, painful condition in certain geographic locations. Most of the comments were along this vein of, it does sound like the farmers know best and mulesing is something that needs to happen. Ellie Mae says, as a shepherdess/farmer, we do everything possible to keep our animals healthy. Our farm is small and how we do things could be much different than someone running thousands of sheep. Farmers have to care for their animals and also watch costs. Don't know any millionaire sheep farmers. We ban tails, which also prevents fly strike, and banned boy parts also. They are uncomfortable for a bit or sometimes not at all, depending on the sheep. There will for sure not be any testicle sucking here. That is hilarious. Now I had, let's see, Jean Ellis had a really interesting comment because she took kind of the opposite view. And here's what she said. Mulesing is outlawed worldwide and in Victoria, except for the rest of Australia. The heavy folds of skin on merino sheep have generally been bred out. That's interesting. But where fly strike is prevalent, something needs to be done to prevent it. With a small flock that gets checked often, it's fairly easy to spot and treat fly strike before it causes damage, either by keeping the rears clean and or treating with insecticide spray. But raising sheep by the thousands or tens of thousands makes close attention impossible. Sadly, the sheep of Australia are basically required to survive on their own between shearing. As a person who has a little flock of sweet sheep, it makes me very sad that that is the case. I neither dock tails nor castrate rams, but with only around 40 animals, I can manage to keep them healthy. I guess the bottom line is buy US wool from small producers, or at least not from Australia, if you don't want to be involved with supporting the practice of cutting lamb's legs. So that's an interesting take on it. She says the problem is not the fly strike. The problem is having so many sheep. I don't know if that's a solvable problem. Like the commenter before said, there are no millionaire sheep farmers. Like, you need to have a certain number of sheep to make it profitable. And so, you just have to kind of do what you can. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Maren Scott says, anyone who has seen an animal eaten alive from fly strike will understand why mulesing is done on those flocks of thousands of animals tending for themselves in the outback. No sane producer wants to harm their animals. Fly strike is horrific. So a lot of interesting commentary around it. I can see both sides. I get that in an ideal world, every animal would be tended by a human being. But I think in the real world, when that can't happen, you just have to do the best you can. I don't know. That's just me. I also got a lot of great comments on Sherry's story from last week because it was so good. So many people could relate to that story. And I also got a lot of comments on the tech editor situation, and I think I am good. So thank you so much. I got both professional recommendations and amateurs who are like, I think I could be a tech editor. I would like to try it, which I think is great. I understand what a good tech editor needs to do. And so I would be more than happy to help someone along and mentor them if they wanted to become a tech editor. So like I said, I got a lot of inquiries and a lot of names. So thank you so much for that. Like I said, many people love the story about Sherry's sweater. And Jean Ellis also said, Devin, love your code for a normal person. It made me laugh. Wish I could help, but have no idea what a tech editor does. Crunch numbers and read patterns looking for mistakes. Yeah, you need to edit it for basic things like any editor would do, but a tech editor needs to also have a good understanding of sweater math and grading and understanding how a sweater is graded over multiple sizes with editing that type of pattern. If it's a pattern that's only one size, it's a much simpler pattern to deal with. But when grading is involved, it really does take a lot of math and understanding, which can be a leap, I think, for some people, but not an insurmountable one, I think. Flo says, I love your outfit. It sent me on a search for a pinafore dress because I love them. Me too. I agree with you. We let the farmer do his farming. Okay. Robert May says, I too am on a quest for a mohair sweater and have been for years. My older sister had a pale, fluffy, greenish cardigan, too small to borrow. I bet Sherry and I are the same age. I've been stashing every skein of mohair I have thrifted, hoping that I'll have enough to make something. Then I saw Martin Story's glitter on Ravelry, and I think that's the one, only with long sleeves. It is so classic. Have a look. I love the idea knitting a Legends pattern, and that he is. That's awesome. Glenda Bathgate, Glenda's British. She lives over in the UK. She says, that story was great. I think we all wanted to be in that group. I had a horrible high school experience with bullying, and it nearly drove me to illness, and I couldn't tell my parents. I think a lot of teenagers experience that, and I think it's a lot worse nowadays than it was when we were kids, and it was bad when we were kids. I remember. Wendy M says, I hope Sherry finds her perfect pattern. My middle school object of desire was Guess jeans. Yes. I remember my grandma used to take me school shopping before school, and we would go to Gabriel Brothers in Steubenville, Ohio. It was about an hour from my house. And back then, I don't know if it's still there, and I don't even know if it's still the same kind of store. If it is, but back then, Gabriel Brothers had like seconds. So they'd have jeans that, you know, the zipper was broken or a button was missing or there was a rip in it or whatever. There was something wrong with this garment. And we would go, and that's the only way I got Guess jeans was because we would shop there, and you could get them for like $5. But you know what I remember were those K-Swiss sneakers. I guess Gabriel Brothers didn't have those because I remember pining after those sneakers that everyone had and I did not. Okay, knitting fantasies. Since that commenter brought up Martin's story, I thought, let's go take a look at his patterns and see what he's got. She said he was a legend. I've never heard of him before. Have you heard of him? I feel bad. But I went, and if you go to martinstory.co.uk, you can see and buy his patterns online. He's British. She said he was a legend, which made me think maybe he was dead, but it does not look like he's dead. It looks like he's alive. There are some amazing patterns, all for between like 4.5 to 5 pounds, which is a little pricey if you do the conversion to the US. Usually pounds are a good bit over dollars, but I think actually, I'm not exactly sure where they are right now. My first pick is the Deep Aran cowl. This is super pretty. It has a lot of cables and it's very luxurious. It's knit in a DK. It says it's an Aran cowl with a repeating Aran pattern, but the yarn is a DK weight. So that is really pretty. It reminds me of a Brooklyn tweed pattern. Going on beyond that, he has a ton of really cool patterns. My next pick is the Square Aran cushion. This is also an Aran pattern, again, describing the cable, not the weight of the yarn. It's again knit in DK. And I really, really like this. This is so pretty. It's like entirely stockinette on one side, and then it has cables and bobbles on the other side. I am really excited about doing some pillow covers. I really want to knit some of those because I feel like I want to decorate my house in whatever way I want. And sometimes you just can't find the exact color that you want. And so you have to dye it yourself and make your own pillow covers or your own couch blankets. I feel like that's in my future. I'm definitely gonna have some of those. But for now, Martin Story has some really cool ones. He has lots of really cool colorwork patterns. Here is another cushion, looks like a pillow cover, called Forest Flowers. It's a Fair Isle 2-color. It looks like it's just a pillow cover because it says it has button bands on the back. Really, really pretty. Oh yeah, there's a picture of the back where you can see that it buttons onto the pillow. Yeah, lots of very classic Fair Isle stuff on Martin Story's website. This sweater is called the Lynx Cable Cardigan. It is a classic V-neck, longer length cardigan with a cable panel bordering the button band, has a split hem with the back rib 8 rows longer than the front ribs. I do like that when the back is a little bit longer. This is really pretty. I really like this kind of heathery, tweedy, Donegal looking yarn that he seems to really like. What brand did I just see that he was using? Rowan. So yeah, anyway, go check out Martin Story's website. Looks really, really good. Okay, so here's what happened. I got a couple stories this week, and the first one that I wanted to share from you is from Beth. Beth says, buckle up, this is a long and winding message. My granddaughter, age 17, flew solo for the first time from Tokyo via Seattle to visit me in North Idaho for Christmas. First of all, that is quite the first solo flight. Does she live in Tokyo, Beth? That's awesome. But she came to visit for Christmas. My sister, who lives in North Carolina, decided to meet her great niece's arrival in Spokane from Seattle. It was probably the worst winter day on record for both snow and ice. They had to spend a night in a Spokane hotel, and the normally 2-hour trip from the airport took just over 4 hours to my house the next day. Utter joy ensued with their arrival. That is awesome. I love it. Prior to coming, my granddaughter sent a message that she wanted to learn how to knit a certain hat, sending me a photo of something with cat ears and braids. I searched Ravelry for suitable patterns, sending several photos to her, but none was just right. The 10 days of her stay was all too short for knitting lessons. In truth, she wanted me to knit the hat, confessing her obsession with and passion for pom-poms. I totally get this. I have a daughter who's 17, I have a daughter who's 13, and I have one who is 8. And I totally get them just bringing you a picture and saying, can you make me this? This is the thing that I want. Beth says, when watching your episode 110, I saw the gumdrop hat and downloaded it immediately, sending her a photo. Bullseye. This was exactly what she wanted, which to me says, like, I have struck a chord with the 17-year-olds of the world. That's to me a big hit and a win. Check mark, gold star for me. Like whenever I wear something that I've designed and knit, and my daughter says, ooh, I like that. Can I borrow that? I'm like, yep, yes. Beth says, last week, in addition to putting away all the Christmas decorations, I spent 2 full days reorganizing my stash. 30 plus years of collecting. Wow, that is awesome. I would love to see pictures of this. Beth sends me pictures, so I'm hoping that she'll send me a picture of this reorganized stash. I found the perfect yarn for the hat. Knitted Wit Victory DK, which is 100% superwash merino in the colorway Love is Love. The last pom-poms that I made 5 decades ago involved cardboard circles and fell apart rather quickly. I have ordered a kit of assorted sized plastic pom-pom makers from Amazon, due to arrive later this week. You can make pom-poms with the cardboard circle. I've never done it, but I think if they're falling apart, it has to do with what you're using to tie it up in the middle. A lot of times I will use doubled over heavy duty thread that is like, if you pull it and pull it and pull it, it won't break. If you use yarn, a lot of times the yarn will break. So what I will do is tie it really tightly and go around a couple times with the heavy duty thread, and that will hold the pom-pom a little bit better. So she has sent a picture of the completed hat without the pom-poms. So that's this. And then after she got the pom-poms on, she sent me another picture, and here is that. Beth says, thank you for supplying the perfect pattern. Also, just watch your episode 111, one of the best knit vlogs that I have ever seen on YouTube. Wow, what a great compliment. That is so kind of you, Beth. I really appreciate that. I appreciate all of you. You guys are wonderful. Like, whenever I worry about the retreat, because I worry and worrying is just kind of what I do, I think this is the greatest group of people in the entire world. What am I afraid of? Like, it's going to be awesome. I cannot wait. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a knitting story for next week that is a real tearjerker. So you're going to want to bring your tissues for that one. The week after that is my retreat. I will not have time to do a podcast that week, but there will be one the following week. So I will see you then. Okay, bye knitters.